Richard Jenkins just finished watching Olive Kitteridge a few weeks ago on HBO, a 4-hour miniseries that I think is going to do really well at the upcoming Golden Globes and SAG Awards and next year at the Emmy Awards. But just tell me about Henry. What were your, as you read the script and as you prepared to play him, tell us about your thoughts about Henry.
Well, when I read it, I loved it. First of all, I thought it was just amazing. Frances McDormand called me and said, "I want you to play Henry," and I had no problem saying yes. It was an incredible script. But you know, the more I worked on it, the more I thought of my mom. And it wasn't intentional, but my mother was very kind. She was filled with kindness. In fact, I really saw her angry. I saw her frustrated at times, but I never saw her angry, really angry. And it just kept coming back to me that this is kind of like my mom. If my mother didn't like you, you must have done something really bad, because she was very sweet, patient, understanding woman, and that's Henry kind of became her.
Well, I hope that was your mom, Olive was not like your father.
No, but my father was a pessimist, and my mother was such an optimist, and we see that in a lot of relationships, you get something from the other person that you don't have, that you kind of need. And my father had a dose of reality that my mother needed sometimes, and she had a sense of optimism that he needed a lot. So it is kind of like Henry and Olive in that sense. But no, my dad was my dad was he was a cool guy.
Not to the maybe opposites attract, but not to the extremities of Olive and Henry, though. I started wondering about midway through the miniseries. I wonder how these two ever really even got together, because they're way opposite.
Well, it's funny. I've heard that before, and it never occurred to me. It always made sense to me, the relationship. I got it playing it, you know. And I think if you watch it again, sometimes these things need to be. In fact, I've seen it 4 times, which is rare for me. I don't usually watch anything more than once, if once. And I see things the third and fourth time I didn't see the first time. And a lot of that is a relationship. It's just the moments between the two of them where they connect, where they understand each other, where they talk in shorthand. And I got it. I always got it. I knew he loved her from the beginning, understood why he loved her, and in her way knew that she loved him.
One moment I thought kind of summed up the two of them was when after the wedding you're at the house, and the daughter-in-law is overheard outside. Olive overhears the daughter-in-law, and she's talking to somebody else at the party and says, "Oh, we love Henry, but not Olive so much." That was kind of the reaction a lot of people had in that town, right?
Yeah, and you could tell it hurt her, and that's the other thing. You could tell it hurt Olive when they said that. It's not. It's like the student that she saved, who said she really wasn't that bad. I mean, he understood her. She was only trying. Let me say this. I always felt Olive was always trying to help. Usually, that's. She may not have gone about it in the most diplomatic way, but she said what she thought, and you know, the truth is, I never found it that mean. I mean, there were times, but it made sense to me. In fact, she used to do things in the miniseries when we were shooting it that, as Henry, I would think, "You go, that's great. I could never do that. I'm glad you're doing that," because I could never say that to her. I just, yeah, I just see it differently than a lot of people. It's interesting. It's interesting. When you're in the middle of a relationship, like Fran and I were in that film, got very close, and we were friends before and became really close friends during the miniseries. We're both in very long relationships. I've been married for coming on 45 years now, and we understand the shorthand and the you know, the ups and downs, and what it takes to keep something, you know, from unraveling. You know.
Well, she's one of the great actresses of all time. What about the two of you in terms of acting styles? Are you very similar?
Well, I said to her once, "You have no idea how good you are unless you're across the camera from you." When you know, I know how good you are because I'm playing scenes with you. Yeah, yeah, she's, how could I say it? She's one of the great actresses who ever lived. She's just a brilliant actress and understood Olive completely. And boy, we had fun. It was just fun.
Well, a couple of other moments I wanted to ask you about specifically. You put up with a lot. Henry puts up with a lot, but boy, the real feelings come out on that hospital floor between the two of you.
I mean, it's hurtful. It's hurtful what we say to each other. And what can I say? We, as he says, we'll get over it in time. You know. But
What
it's
about that?
hurtful.
Talk about shooting that particular scene. It's a real pivotal scene for the whole project.
Yeah, it was interesting because we shot it. We shot a lot of this in order, which was really great. Not all of it, but a lot of it. In fact, we shot the stuff in the pharmacy with Denise. We shot that at the end, but most everything else was in order. And we were both a little nervous about it, how it would play out, what it would, where it would go. I love what Lisa did with it. I love the way she edited it, the way she shot it. Um, you know, the laughter that came at the end of it was kind of something that just happened while we were shooting it. And it, if you start thinking something is a pivotal scene, then you're sunk. So we didn't talk about it that much. We rehearsed this baby for 3.5 weeks together. Fran and I just sat around and talked and read and talked. Other actors would come in, we'd read with them, we'd talk, and it was great because for no other, well, not for no other reason, for two or three reasons. One of them is we got to really know each other as Olive and Henry, and I got to know where I was in the script at all times because it's over 25 years, and sometimes you shoot one day. In fact, there were days where I would shoot, I would be 75, and then I'd be 50. So you have to keep it straight, and for me, it's a little difficult sometimes. So that rehearsal was really helpful.
Well, that was one of the nicest things about it, I thought, ultimately, was by being a miniseries and being 4 hours. If it had been a feature film, I don't think, a 2-hour movie would have allowed the pace, the gentle pace, the long, look at several decades that being on HBO and being a miniseries allowed you to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's except you can do it in the movies with intermission. Like, which is what we did at the Venice Film Festival. They showed the first 2 hours, took an intermission. If people went out, got something to eat, came back, and watched the next two. It is a long movie. That's what it is, and it you just have to take your time with it. You have to live your life on camera. Basically, what we tried to do, and you never know how it's going to turn out. But I think. I'm really pleased with it.
One element of Henry's personality, and it's brought up several times by Olive, is he really likes to flirt with she calls them the mousy girls. What did you think about that particular aspect of his personality?
Well, he finds her. He loves her optimism. He loves her innocence, and he loves the fact that she counts on him, needs him. He has a crush on her. I always did, but wasn't going anywhere because that's just creepy. Somebody my age, and so well, it was a tough thing to negotiate. I stopped thinking about it and just kind of jumped in and did the scenes the way I thought they should be played. I mean, the way they came at me anyway. I didn't want it to be creepy. That's the thing I worried about. I didn't want this, old man and this young. It just so it was a delicate thing.
Well, I think you did walk a fine line there, but it paid off because I don't think the audience ever felt like Henry was going to have an affair. I think much like what was probably in his mind was he's just being nice to people.
He is, but I mean, there was something special about her that he was. I mean, it came at a time in his life, and Olive was, with the English professor, and it was they both were having struggles. That first episode is their struggle, kind of, and then you see how they deal with that for the next three episodes. And it's like Denise came along at a time, and she said, Olive says you'll have somebody who will worship you. Won't that be nice? And he says it will actually, yeah. And she just came along at the right time, or the wrong time, depending on how you look at it. And wasn't Zoe Kazan fantastic?
Well, I'm going to mention spoiler here because if somebody's watching this and they haven't watched Olive yet, please do. But toward the end, your character has a stroke. And you're in the I guess the nursing home there for a good while of one of the episodes. What about as an actor? What kind of process do you have to go through to be in that mental state and that physical state?
Well, when you hit my age, I'm 67. My father had a stroke when he was 69. So it cuts close to the bone. And I remember him. I remember going to the hospital and seeing him lose movement in his side of his face and his hand. And he said, I can't move my hand. And 5 minutes later, he couldn't move his arm. And you just saw it happening. And it's terrifying. And so that, I mean, I understand. I didn't want the audience to know one way or the other if he was understanding or not, if he was connecting or not. I thought it would be more interesting if they didn't know. Olive thinks he does. Christopher says he's fried. So that's really what I was interested in is not giving it away. And if he could, and being trapped in that body so you can't communicate, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That was a fine line to walk again. I mean, I didn't know as a viewer either, and I thought at some point maybe they would let us know or there would be some indication, but there really wasn't.
No, it's life. It's life.
But you do see Olive switch over into a whole other different kind of person when she's needed, when it's necessary for her to do that.
Well, it's I think Henry knew that Olive. There were times when that Olive was around, and I think if you see that, as opposed to it being, oh, this is something she's never done before, I think she has. I think maybe when they were younger, when they started their relationship, when you see her with Christopher when he's a little boy, when he's sick in bed, and it's a different person, and I always thought that this was kind of maybe closer to the Olive that I saw when we were younger.
I want to ask you a couple of career questions. Oscar nomination for The Visitor a few years ago. Just talk about, we're an awards website, so we love chatting about those kinds of things. Talk about that whole season and what's involved and what was involved for you, really out in like political campaign mode there for a few months.
Yeah, I mean, it came along, and it's not my favorite thing to do, I have to say. I'm not really great at it, but my wife said, if you're going to do this, do it. Don't complain. Do it. Enjoy it. And I have to say, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot. I got to meet a lot of great people. Go a lot of do interesting things. And I thought I actually thought the award ceremony themselves was pretty. We all sit around when the Academy Awards come down. I go, oh, look, that I don't know what that number is. Why are they doing that? When you see it, you realize how much effort and how much love the Academy puts into this, and it was incredibly impressive.
Well, I've told so many people, just being around this for a few years now and following it, don't totally focus on the night of the Oscars. Enjoy the whole journey, because there's, like you say, there's so many interesting things to do and see, and I particularly love the Oscar nominee luncheon. I think it's just such a family affair.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and you see people you haven't seen in sometimes 20 years, because it's a fairly small community, and you worked with a lot of people, and behind the camera, in front of the camera, and sometimes you've done a movie 20 years ago with a DP or a casting director or an actor, and there they are. You see them again, and it was a lot of fun. I have to say, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And that same year, you are nominated for the Screen Actors Guild Award, which for you, I bet, being in the Screen Actors Guild for so long was probably just as valuable to you as the Oscar nomination.
Yeah, it was. It was. You know, you hear this all the time. To be nominated by your peers, but it's true. I mean, it's true. It's, you know, actors who look at your work and go, I like that, and that's pretty cool.
Now, I'm assuming you've been an Academy member for a good while, voting every year. Is that correct?
Yep. No, I don't remember when I joined, but I've been a while.
It was before your nomination, though, several years before your nomination. I always like to ask this question when I've got an Oscar voter on with me, and you could be as specific as you want to be, or make it generic. Just talk about voting. Talk about what, as for you, doing this for a good while now in the business, when you're marking your X next to somebody's name, what impresses you in a performance that makes you want to vote for them?
You know what it comes down to is if I believe it. If I'm seeing a person, if I'm watching a person on the screen, going through their struggles, living their life, dealing with things, and I see a human being, I am so drawn to that. I watch all day, and that's what I look for. I mean, I think it's what we all want, even though we don't know it sometimes. You know, we all want to see. We all want to see a person dealing with whatever it is they're dealing with, and when you see it, you know it.
Any particular past performances that or movies that you just really loved?
That I've seen or that I've been in.
Oh, let's just make it that you've seen. We can talk about some of the ones you've been in too, but particular ones that you thought, boy, I'm so glad they won the Oscar. That was, or I'm so glad they were nominated. That was very impressive.
Well, gosh, if I, you know, it's one of those things. If I start, I'm gonna hang up here. I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna go. Wait a minute. There's 26 more that I.
Well, they know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just think of something. I mean, there's so many great young actors now today. There's just a lot of great young actors. Joaquin Phoenix, I just think, is a fabulous actor. Jake Gyllenhaal, I think, is terrific. Josh Brolin. I mean, there's tons of really great actors and actresses. But I always look for people like Diane Wiest. Whatever she does, I adore, because I think she's really one of the great ones. Of course, Meryl Streep. I love Diane Keaton. I love watching her. I just think she breaks my heart and she moves me. And you know, there's so many, just so many. You know, and you go, everything Duvall does or Hackman did. Right? I mean, it's like Pacino. I mean, it's great, so many great actors. Who am I missing? Everybody.
Your own co-star here. I just love the fact that a smaller film like Fargo, Frances McDormand, had just such a layered, honest performance that she won the Oscar for it.
Well, she's one of the great. She's one of the great ones, and you see it in Olive, and you see her get a chance to take all of those years of experience and just say, here it is, folks, 4 hours living my life, and that's. I mean, it's extraordinary. Yeah, and Fran, which have you ever seen her on the stage?
I have not seen her on stage.
It's just amazing on the stage too. It's disheartening after a while. It's like, come on, Fran.
Do something bad. Do one bad role.
What do you do?
Well, I think a lot of us and a lot of film fans, TV fans would put you in that same group of all the people you just named, because when we see that you're going to be in a film, we know that at least one portion of that film is going to be good, if not the whole thing.
Well, thank you. That's very nice. I appreciate it.
Well, good luck with the awards coming up. I feel like I said before, you and Frances and the project itself are going to really be out there nominated for a lot of stuff, hopefully winning a lot of stuff, and appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure talking to you.